All right, hi guys, my name's Jose Morales. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Penta's lifelong intern. I've been interning for almost 3 years now. So I've been on several Penta projects. Next slide. So Penta's lifelong intern. Right now I'm going into my junior year at UNLV, which is crazy because when I started with Penta, I was a senior in high school. So now I'm a junior at UNLV. Go Rebels. I'm a class of 2022, and then I'm in construction management. So this summer, I was Dan's superintendent intern over at the Yamava Hotel Tower project. So by the one and only Dan Martinez. Next slide. So going into a new project was, it's always been a little bit tough for me going from project to project because every team is a little bit different in the way that they do things. So it was, a big learning curve of adapting to a new team in a new environment. So, all the processes are a little bit different, and, they say there's more than one way to skin a cat, and, at this project, it definitely showed that it's, I've learned like 3 different ways to, process an RFI, or just like the systems that they use to put them together. And then another big part was QA/QC, which I think was one of my big focuses while I was there. I involved myself in a lot of field verifying, which is something I had never done at a previous project. Next slide. So the project in itself, San Manuel project overall, so it consists of a hotel tower, a casino podium, an entertainment venue, and a central plant, which they call Cogen. But I was on the hotel tower, on the high-rise. So it's a multi-story high-rise, and then a few key features of it is that we used fly table systems to erect each floor. So the main structure consisted of concrete, rebar, and PT cable, which is something that I also had never seen before. And then my main focus when I got there, the interior build-out was starting. So that's what I kind of put my main focus on while I was there. Next slide. So these are just some progress photos of the hotel tower. This is over here on the 5th floor of the high-rise tower. What you can see here is this guy, he's kind of leveling out the floor because we had some discrepancies with overall ceiling heights, which when you look at the overall picture, that can be a pretty big issue on a high-rise tower. And then these 4 pictures over here on the right are just of the interior framing, which was my main focus. Next slide. So my assists, going more in depth. So like I said, working with the ceiling heights. So for example, the overall ceiling heights of these floors were 9 feet. So within those 9 feet, right, you have to fit all of your overhead MEPs, and everything was matching up. So everything that was in our BIM model was matching up with the field, but there were still discrepancies. So my focus on this job was to dive into the details and actually see where that discrepancy really was, because on paper everything looked like it was fine, but then in the field something was off. And then I did a lot of the coordination of the backing. So there was minimal details that showed backing requirements for a lot of our items. And something that made it even harder was that a lot of our owner-furnished items were not spec'd out yet or not bought out yet. So we had minimal information to go off of. And the reason that was a problem was because job has to keep going, schedule has to keep going, so. All right. And then I also worked on floor drain issues, which also had to do with what was on the plans and what the actual design on the field was. Next slide. Top 4 mentors. Dan, he really helped me understand schedule. Zeke, right under Dan, he helped me focus on getting the trade partners to listen, because I just go out there as a kid and they're like, I'm like, oh, do this. They're like, who are you? So, and then especially like our JV partner, they're like, oh, Pancow, you're weird with Penta, who are you? But, and then Trisha, she helped me with our pre-pour checklist and kind of items to look for before we poured our floors. And then Eric Salas was the PE who I worked with most for the interiors. Next slide. And then these are just a few other pictures, like I mentioned before, of our fly tables going up each floor, pre-pour photos, and then the underside of what these fly tables look like. Next slide. And now I'll open it up for any questions.
So, as you mentioned, you've been here for quite some time, and you've had, you mentioned it as well, that you've learned a lot of different ways of doing the same thing, right? You specifically mentioned RFIs.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, we're kind of in the process of working on standard operating procedures to try and tighten that up a bit. But throughout the multiple experiences you've had with it, have you found that there's been one particular person that's got the right way and that's the best way of doing it, or do you feel that there's a hybrid of ways to do things that kind of works out best?
I honestly think there's more than one way to, generate an RFI. Now that I think there's a better way, yes, and I kind of learned that at the Caesars project with Katharina. She drilled me on my RFIs constantly until I finally generated a decent RFI. So, just diving into the details, telling the story of what the problem really is. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So you had a note in there about pre-pour checklists with Trisha.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about some of the things that you were looking for and if you caught anything before concrete went down?
Sure. Yeah. So a few of the things that we look for. The way that the rebar is laid out, you want to look on this project. We had a lot of stud rails. It's pretty much just reinforcement of the concrete, right? And you look for placement of rebar, mainly making sure that all your penetrations are in the right place. And something that kind of helps this process go a lot faster. Once you have one floor done right, it's pretty much repetition all the way up. So we already kind of had a good idea of items that we were looking for, like rebar, MEP penetrations and stuff like that.
So this is your first time in the field, right?
First time, yeah.
Anything
Well, like for,
with the superintendent?
Yep.
Was there anything that you learned out there or saw a problem that was solved that will help you in the future to identify it before it becomes a problem?
I would say just communication in general on such a large project can turn into a big issue in itself, right? So it's really hard to try and get everyone on the same page, right? So I think that's a big focus from the start of the project that one should put their focus on before it becomes an issue, because you send something out and then you get subs telling you, oh, I didn't get it. So you want to do everything that you can to eliminate trade partners saying, oh, I didn't get this or that. So communication for sure.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
You were involved with the lean program that we did out at San Juan.
I'm sorry?
The lean program that we did out at San Juan.
Yep.
What are your thoughts?
I think what we had going went well with, like, I'm not sure if you're referring to like our prefab of all of our interior walls, which made the schedule go a lot faster. It was definitely a lean process, especially for the tower, right? Since it's repetitious, I think it really fits in well with what we have going on in the tower.
The involvement that we have with the pool plant, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we pretty much got all the subs in our pool plan. We got all of the subs to come into one room. Pretty much they all talk to each other, right? So the whole, all the efforts put into them talking to each other in one room gets reflected out on the field, right? So they're like, oh, I want to go first, but wait, you can't go in till I go in. So they put all their stickies with durations in their activities. So that way, it kind of covers us and it covers them. So they know what they're doing out in the field, we know what we're looking for, and the job gets rolled out smoothly that way.
Now, do you think that that will help you in the future with the planning?
I would, yeah, definitely, because like I said, communication with your key trade partners is huge. So once you get these subs to talk to each other, you feel confidence in yourself as a superintendent. Like, hey, they know what they're doing and I know what I'm looking for.
You said that you had some trouble at times with some of the subs or trade partners. Did you have troubles with them buying into the poll planning? Or can you talk about some of the instances where you were having issues with them?
Yeah, so towards the end, right, so our first typical floor was on the 5th floor of the high-rise, and this, it was mainly with our MEP guys. So when I went out in the field, right, they were kind of just talking about how there needed to be some adjustments made to the poll plan, and you know, because they want, you know, the electrical, the Sparkies want their guys to go in first, but then you have your mechanical guys saying, hey, but they're in my way, I should be going in first. So, you know, small things like that where you, you know, put a pause to the situation. All right, let's talk about it, and get them into one room and fix it, right? Because since it's repetitious, you want the next floor to be better than the one before.
A big part of, you know, construction, obviously what a superintendent does daily, you see a lot too, is conflict management. What's something you felt you learned from your internship that maybe you can apply in a future opportunity in construction?
Well, the way that I saw Dan handle it is just, well, I learned from him, right? I was in the office with him,
What's
so.
something you learned from Dan?
All right, well, all right, so there's several things. So, so it's just, one big thing that I learned from Dan was that when you face, you know, issues with, you know, out on the field and just in general, right? He almost taught me to just take a step back and analyze the situation and then come up with, you know, an effective solution, not just, you know, a short-term solution. So even if that took a few hours longer or it took more effort out of you to get that going, then do that. And then another thing that, you know, he kind of got on me a few times was he told me, don't bring me an answer until you know that's the answer. So he pretty much wanted it's, you know, maybe it's a 1-inch discrepancy. No, he's like, is it or is it not? He's like, is it or is it not? So he taught me to be assertive and affirmative and kind of build confidence in my character. So.
You said there was a discrepancy, or you said there was some ceiling issues, and there was a discrepancy between the auto and the field.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I know it's, sorry, I can't figure out what that is.
Yeah, so I actually worked with Michael Cox on this issue. So pretty much when you go out on the field, right, there's, like I said, they're 9-foot floors from top of slab to underside of slab. And then to the bottom of the MEP sewer lines, these P-traps, it was, I don't remember the exact dimensions right now, but it was what was shown in the model. So everything looked good. But the issue was that you still had to have your framing and your drywall under that. And the reflected ceiling plan called like for a, what was it, an 8-foot ceiling or something like that. So the way that that was laid out at the time, it wasn't going to work with our finished ceiling height. So, you know, that was the issue in itself. That it's almost like everything was too up against each other.
So what would you do differently, you know, with the experience that you gained the next time you have that issue?
I mean, since it was such a specific, you know, issue, I think that's just something that I would look into on a future job. But just in general, doing a lot of field verification, which is what I put my focus on. Like just going out there with the tape and actually measuring stuff, you'd be surprised what you find out there. So that's, you know, deviates from the actual plans. Any other questions? Cass, you got something?
No. Don't put me on the spot. You're supposed to be put on the spot.
So if I have no questions, and you want more questions, cool. Well, how would you, you guys did a great job with the full planning down at San Manuel. How would you utilize the model, incorporate the model into the full plan?
That's a good question, but I mean, I'd have to get back on you with you on that one. But I would probably say, take it by how the plans show it, by levels, right? By floors. If the pole plan is for levels 5 and 6, then have your, our VDC team out from the trailers come in and hear the talks and stuff on levels 5 and 6, and get their blessing, making sure everything's ready to go on 5 and 6.
Was the model actually used? Or did you view the model in the meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely a point of reference. Especially at times like what I was talking about with that discrepancy. So it was definitely something that we referenced.
Good.
Were your subs using the model in the field, and if so, were they ever pointing out any discrepancies there?
So, yeah, probably not as much as they should have been using the model. Because these guys are just, especially with their tight schedule, we're just going and going and going. So sometimes I feel like they saw it as, we don't have time to be looking at the model. But in the end, they were using it, but I don't think as much as they should have been.
Or shoot some light.